It's time to relive great moments with former Cowboys.
Eddie Sutton, one of the all-time greats.
You know, that's one of the great things in having the opportunity to coach here at Oklahoma State was the fact that you had such great people.
It's time for Where Are They Now on Triple Play Sports Radio.
John Farrell, former Cowboy pitcher back in the early 80s.
And you know what, mostly putting up with me, I guess, after, chasing everybody around, chasing us around the country.
Where Are They Now? Our weekly talk with former Oklahoma State athletic coaches, players, and personnel.
Desmond Mason, former All-American player here at Oklahoma State.
So today, that's what I spend most of my days doing. For the most part is, in the studio trying to paint and trying to create, and I enjoy doing that.
It's like catching up with an old friend every Wednesday.
Boy, do I feel old today, as I always do on a Wednesday when we bring back some of these former athletes. We're talking with Houston Nubb.
Sure did. Had a great time. That was of course, my mom and dad went to school there. My brother, Dickie, as you mentioned, went to school there. And, of course, we both met our wives right there in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Now your host, ready to take a stroll down memory lane, here is Tom Dirato.
Well, thank you, and welcome once again to Where Are They Now? And as always, looking forward to chatting for the next some odd few minutes with our guest. And this, as we've been telling you here in the previous hour, certainly no stranger to Where Are They Now. Jim Ifland is a Cowboy Hall of Famer for sure, one of the better players that ever came through Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I wanted to start with this, if I could. I think you're aware of it, obviously, by now, but what was it, 2 weekends ago, Ward Stevenson exchanged his lineup cards at the plate, and that was kind of a reunion there. And they were asked to put down, and I don't know what the parameters were, their best players, favorite player. I don't know what the parameters were on the lineup card. But guess who was the DH on that lineup card? Jim Ifland. What does that say, man?
That kind of blew me away, honestly. I was, all of a sudden my phone was blowing up, and I'm figuring out what's going on, and heard a little bit about it. Didn't really know it was even going to happen. So I kind of figured out what was done, and saw my name on there, and man, that's there's kind of a funny story that goes along with that, because early in the first fall that I was there on campus, and this is over 30 years ago now, I remember the very first scrimmage game we ever had against another school, and it was one of those fall scrimmage games, and I looked over at the lineup card to see if my name was on it, and it was, but it was Jeff Ifland, Ifflund. And I thought, I got kind of a chuckle the other day when I found out about this this lineup card that Coach Ward put out recently, and I thought, well, I sure must have done enough that he at least got my name right this time. So
I didn't check the spelling.
The spelling was correct.
Was it? Okay.
And it said Jim, not Jeff. So.
Well, I was gonna go this direction. Ward's like me, as old as he is. Sometimes you forget things from year to year. And so it wouldn't have surprised me at all if he had the wrong name in there. But the honor is such that, and I forget who else was on that lineup. But I mean, you, and we've discussed this before. But you came out of, in my mind, a golden era of college baseball players when you were here.
Yeah, true. And yeah, honestly, I'm not so sure I'm deserving to be on that, especially when you're talking about a lineup of 9 people. And like you said, who knew what? He probably was put on the spot. He kind of tried to come up with 9 names, and if I had to do it, I probably wouldn't have listed a DH, But he's thinking, okay, I need a designated hitter. Oh well, I was maybe the only true designated hitter that never played any other position.
Yeah.
So I maybe my name kind of came to him that way. But yeah, you go down the it was an honor. There were 3 of us from the same team on that group of 9 with Ferris and Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of all the great athletes, the great players, the ones that went on to play in the major leagues, we've got some that played on Olympic gold medal teams. the fact my name came up in that conversation and I somehow made it into that group of 9 it's overwhelming.
Well, having said all that, though, I'm going to brag on you a little bit. All these years later, I'm not trying to make you an old man, but you threw out the 30 years ago. Your name is still prominently listed on season records, and I'm not going to go through every one of them, but games that you played, at bats, you were very reliable there, total bases, doubles, RBIs. All these years later, man, the Ifland name, and they spelled it right in the media guide, I made sure, but you're still there. That says a lot about the years you had here.
Yeah, they far exceeded anything I really ever thought I could do, and that's really a testament to coaching. Coach Ward, what I was able to learn from him, his confidence in me to find what worked. I got to Stillwater and there wasn't a strike I didn't like. I had no. You talk about an approach or trying to swing at your strengths, and if it was in a strike zone, I was swinging at it. And quite frankly, when I got there, I was pretty lousy, pretty overmatched for a while, making that jump from JUCO to D1. And thankfully, Coach Ward, stuck with me, and we started talking, having some one-on-ones, and then Dave Holliday got involved, who was, he doesn't get a lot of credit. Dave doesn't, but he was the one that could implement the Gary Ward philosophy, and he was the one that was more actually hands-on in the cage, hour after hour after hour, working with you, tossing, throwing BP, that kind of thing. So the two of them together, they just had a knack for finding strengths in people and then working with them individually. He taught me more about myself than I even knew, and was able to extract the talent level out of me that I didn't know I had. It's really cool that he listed me on that list of 9, but I wouldn't have been, it would have never happened without Coach Ward.
I was telling the guys during the first hour, and I think you would agree, you probably are a lot more mellow now, obviously, but you were wound pretty tight when you played here. And you call it focus, you call it intensity, you could bring about 5 other descriptions in there. But you were locked into everything that went on in the game, and sometimes the old bat rack was the recipient of some of your frustration. But was that a major part of why you were able to succeed, because you didn't have any distractions?
Well, definitely. I mean, the designated hitter role, it can be a blessing and a curse. I mean, would I have loved to have been out on the field and helped the team in making a defensive play or, on that side of the baseball? Sure, especially if you just had a bat at bat, struck out with the bases loaded, but you get to go out the next half inning and make a play and save a run. It kind of cancels each other out. I'd go back in the dugout and have to sit there for 20 minutes until my next turn, and there were some blockers that took some abuse and and bats and helmets thrown, and I have to tell people now that please don't do that. But it was my way of, I guess, getting refocused, and I'm a super competitive person, and I don't like to lose at anything, and so I guess it was nice that I was able to have those few minutes alone blowing off steam before I had to go back out and compete again.
I always just kind of backed off a little bit if things didn't go well at the plate when you were coming back in, just to give you enough room to get, because I didn't want to be part and parcel of ducking it with that helmet that went flying by my head there.
Well, yeah, I got in trouble for that a few times too. So there were some negative consequences that came along with those actions, and
As you look at, I'm sure you were one of the many who, I didn't see you up here, so I'm assuming you watched it on TV, but, the last Bedlam game, barring some out of the ordinary regional, super regional matchup with Oklahoma, which would be, 1,000,000 to 1, probably that would happen. But the last time we played Oklahoma last night in Reynolds Stadium, did you watch it, and what were your feelings?
I did. I was able to get home and watch about the second half of the game. They had the lead, and then shortly after I turned it on, things kind of took a momentum shift. The runner getting picked off, another one getting caught stealing, and then 3 errors the following inning, and next thing you know, the game's tied, and I thought, oh boy, maybe I should turn this off and not watch it, because being an old ball player, I'm one of those very superstitious people, and they were winning when I wasn't watching, and now they're losing while I am watching. So, but I stuck with it. And watched. Crazy to think that's it. I mean, I hadn't really thought about that, but I guess the OU series this year's on the road, right? So,
well, you got the Oak City, Tulsa, and then the other one is in Norman this year. Yeah.
So, wow. That's. Oh, it's bittersweet. I'm super excited for the new stadium. It's definitely necessary. I think it's going to be just incredible. And man, if I could do anything to turn the clock back and get some eligibility back, I would absolutely love to play in that stadium. But at the same time, there's just so many memories, great memories, and some of the most, the coolest things that ever happened to me in my life happened inside that stadium. And when the day comes, the wrecking ball goes to it. It's going to be a sad day.
If when that day comes, and I will call you well in advance, I would consider it an honor if you and I were standing somewhere in the vicinity when the ball hit, because I think both of us feel the same way about the place, the old place. It holds so many memories, and and this is putting you on the spot. People always ask me all the time, what was the best game? Well, I don't know. Give me some time to think about it. So I'm doing the same thing to you here. But Oklahoma games, the Bedlam games, in general, were always something to remember, whether it was in Oklahoma City at the tournament or whatever, in the Big 8, old Big. But what about here? Any game jump out that you remember, the Oklahoma game?
Yeah, I have too. I've kind of been thinking about this, just knowing that the days are numbered for the stadium, and so it you kind of take a little trip down memory lane, and two memories definitely jump out. And as far as games go, one of the best games I ever had was an ESPN game against Texas A&M on a rainy night. And we probably, had that game not been on ESPN, they probably wouldn't even have played it.
It was sleeting, for crying out loud.
It rained the entire time, and horrible playing conditions. I went 4 for 5 with 2 home runs, one right-handed, one left-handed. I hit the fence on a third ball. And the fact it was on ESPN, I knew my family and a ton of my friends back in California were all watching, and so that was a pretty special memory, because the year before on the ESPN game that we had, we played Florida, and I told all my family and friends, I'm going to be on TV, you got to watch, and I walked 4 times, and I don't think I got one pitch to swing at. I think I saw 16 straight balls.
Wow.
So
yeah, that one, I'm trying to search, while you were talking, I was trying to search my memory with that one right there, but now it kind of comes back, and it's funny you mentioned the ESPN part of it, because prior to joining us here, we were talking about this in the first hour. Back in those days, that game that you just mentioned, like the A&M game, that was Tim Brando, that was Joe Morgan, that was ESPN trying to get their foot in the college baseball door. And many people think that's what they should do now, but that was one of the first offerings they ever had.
Yeah, those were great, because if the only other hope that you had of playing on TV and ESPN was if you got all the way to the World Series. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how many games they actually broadcast back then. I want to say it was maybe once a week, but
I think it was. It wasn't a quote game of the week, but I think it was a once a week thing. Yeah,
but you were lucky if you got picked one time.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you didn't make it to Omaha, well, that one time was your only shot. And being a Californian, and it was still. This is pre-internet days, so there's no way to get on your phone or your computer and follow a game like you can now. And very few people back then even had satellite dishes, because I know if you had a satellite dish, you could have watched a lot of our games. But my parents were incredible, supportive of all three of their boys and their different interests and aspirations, and from the day one of T-ball till the day I left for Stillwater, I don't think either one of them had missed more than one or two of my games. And that was kind of different and hard for both of us to all of a sudden not be able to follow anything. They had to wait for me to call after or the next day, hey, how'd the game go? And the technology just wasn't available to follow or get online and see a score or a box score or anything like that, so a little bit different.
Isn't that incredible that we're talking about that back then? I mean, Levi, our producer here, is shaking his head like, were you guys, in a cave or what? Were you back caveman? Because he's Mr. on my phone all the time kind of guy. Who was the first to contact you about Oklahoma State? I mean, I don't think Oklahoma State was someplace that you aspired to go from the time that you picked up the first bat, was it?
No, it wasn't, but it was, as like I said, that again, we go back to ESPN broadcasting the World Series games. Now, sometimes they might be on at midnight. They weren't live. They were all rebroadcast later, and I remember when ESPN first came out, being able to start to see some of the College World Series games. And I just happened to notice that Oklahoma State kept popping up all the time. And as you got, older and more interested, and you start to figure out who some of the powerhouses are in college, I kind of had my sights set on Arizona. Obviously, Stanford wasn't far away, but I was not the student that could have even begun to think about getting into that college, so that was out. But I knew who Oklahoma State was because of ESPN and the World Series games, but it wasn't even on my radar to think I would ever go there. And so you asked who the contact was. It was funny. I was living with four other ball players from Idaho. We were sharing an apartment at San Jose City College. And I get a phone call, and it's my mom, and she says, hey, don't tie up your phone. Some man named Tom Holliday from Oklahoma State just called me, and I gave him your number. Now he's going to call you. And I said, okay, well, hang up then, because you're tying up my phone. So we hung up really quick. The phone rang. It was Tom, and I still halfway thought it's one of my teammates playing a prank, and should I hang up? Is this for real? Because just a day or two before that, we had watched Oklahoma State play a game at Omaha. He called me from Omaha during some of the time off between games. And he says, hey, we just found out one of our guys that we had signed for next year got drafted a lot higher than anybody thought. He's going to sign, so we've got a scholarship open, and you're next on the list. Are you interested? And I think before he ever finished the word interested, I said yes. And then he followed that up with, well, we're in Omaha right now, but when we get back in a couple weeks, what if we flew you out to Stillwater? And I not necessary. And he says, well, don't you want to come, kind of look at the – no, don't need to. Yes, I'll come. He says, all right, I'll put your letter of intent in the mail. You'll have it in a few days. Sign it and send it back. And that's how that all happened.
It's crazy how these celebrated players move around the country in all sports now, and it is because of social media. It's a grander event, even grander than it needs to be from time to time. But your story is not unlike a lot of stories, and I only have the Oklahoma State point of reference here, and baseball in particular. That's how we got a lot of these guys. It was an opportunity. I hate to say this, but you couldn't pass up, quite frankly.
Nope. Back then, and again, this is no knock on kids of today, or it was a different. If you didn't live during this era, you're not going to understand. It was a different time. We didn't care about facilities. We didn't care about uniforms. We didn't care about a lot of the stuff that is important to college kids today. When the number one, I think it wasn't, may not have been one, but they were definitely in the top 2 or 3 then. But when a top 5 college calls and invites you to play for them, the answer is yes. I mean, if you 5 minutes before that phone call, I had no idea that was even a possibility. And if you would have said, "Hey, where do you want to go to college?" they wouldn't have been picked.
Mm-hmm.
But when the opportunities presented, it was, and that considering the rest of the options that I had at the time, which were basically nothing, it was kind of like, I'm going to say yes before he hangs up and has a chance to change his mind. And, I mean, I'm just glad. What if he would have called and I wouldn't have been available to talk that night?
How about that?
Would he have gone down to the next guy? I mean, I don't know. And what about whoever this player was that signed professionally, that they weren't counting on having that happen? If that doesn't happen, then the opportunity isn't there. So a lot of things had to kind of fall into place, and when those kind of barriers just fall out of your way without you pushing or doing anything, it just seems like it was just meant to be.
I got to ask you this, and I say this in a positive manner. Were you ready for the Ward/Holiday intensity, goal-oriented, we're going to Omaha and we're going to do everything within our power to get there expectation level? Were you ready for that when you came in?
Honestly, almost, because the guy I played for, Barry Woodhead at San Jose City College, was, you hear about these horrible JUCO experiences with these crazy. I mean, he was crazy. And he was a little bit of a Bobby Knight kind of Tom Izzo, this recent incident with Tom Izzo, that kind of coaching where 1 minute he's in your face telling you how bad you suck and you're about to come to blows, and then the next minute he puts his arm around you and tells you he loves you, and this is for your own good. And you're actually realizing that you're learning more than you could ever learn, and this is the little push that you needed, and this is preparing you for real life, because, real life's not easy, and that he is doing this because he sees that I can be better than what I was doing, without the... So to answer your question, I think when I got there, I don't think I realized the whole... until I actually saw it typed into the syllabus for the season that Omaha is on the schedule, not, and that was kind of cool to just know that was an expectation, not an expectation. It was just going to happen, as if here's our preseason, here's our regular season, and then the end of the list is we're going to be in Omaha on these dates. So it's almost kind of like, don't plan anything during this time because we're still going to be playing.
And you know what? It turned out that way more times than not during the time you were here.
Did. And I remember a practice one time where I didn't think anybody was looking, and I jacked around and took a couple just crazy swings, not serious. And I happened to look back over my shoulder, and Coach Ward was looking at me, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. And he says, if that's 3 swings that you're never going to get back now in preparation for Omaha. And then he walked off. And I thought, man, I got lucky. He didn't yell at me. He didn't, make a scene or call me out in front of the whole team. But what he said and those words and what they meant just cut me to the bone, because it was, this man is like, he's concerned about wasting 3 swings because it's preparing ourselves for the ultimate goal. And because I wasted those, that's, you know, you're not going to get them back. You blew it. That's where the intensity really, it kind of hit me, that how serious this really is, that everything we're doing right now, this minute, is not to win the game tomorrow necessarily, but to get to Omaha.
That's pretty profound. I've never heard that story before, and all the times you and I have talked. Before we let you go, and we always like to get an update on the Ifland clan, what's going on there, and what's going on with yourself.
Well, just recently celebrated 29 years of marriage.
Wow.
To my ex-Diamond Doll wife, who I met in Stillwater and pretty much in Allie P. Reynolds Stadium. Another reason why I hold it so fond to my heart.
Yeah.
We have 3 kids. We have a 25-year-old son who is in North Carolina, Wake Forest, North Carolina, about to graduate from the seminary, and then he's going to take a pastoral residency job at a church, kind of shadow the lead pastor to learn, you know, all the ins and outs about what it takes to be a pastor other than just preaching on a Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. He's going to do that for a year, and then he's already got a job offer, and we'll see what happens. And our 22-year-old daughter is a senior at Oklahoma Baptist University. She's in the nursing program and currently working at the Bethany Children's Hospital down in Bethany. She loves it. She's just incredible. Incredible girl. And our youngest is about to graduate from high school, and she will be attending Southwestern Oklahoma State, so SWASU in Weatherford. Mm-hmm. And she also is going to be in the nursing program. So we're going to be empty nesters soon, but we're still busy. You know, we still work. We still get up to Stillwater when we can, and that's kind of where things are today.
Yeah, you mentioned that a lot of the stuff you do from home, but in general, what is it that keeps you busy on your day job, so to speak?
The day job is my brother and I own and have owned now for the last 15 years. It's something that our dad and his 3 brothers, my uncles, started about 60 years ago. It's a civil engineering business. And when I did get my degree. I did graduate from Oklahoma State, but I kind of was I was young, stupid, and I put all my eggs in the basket of making the major leagues. And I kind of feel like that dream didn't last, but what I was able to do was still really cool, and I got further than most. But when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was pick something, and just jump in and do it. So I talked to my dad, and I had always taken mechanical drafting classes in high school, and I was really pretty good at that. It interested me, and so I've been drafting civil engineering plans for years now. It's obviously all now on computer, so the CAD stuff. My brother is there in California, kind of running the business on the day-to-day basis, and he and I communicate via Skype and go to meeting and different things over the computer. We talk every day. We see each other almost every day, at least over a computer screen. And it's great to be able to live here in Oklahoma but work in California and still remain really close to my family out there.
Well, I'm so glad to hear everything's going so great for you, and it's obvious your kids have taken after their mother in terms of
of course,
success and looks, I'm sure, and all those.
In all of it, yes.
And you're just kind of there.
And it's funny because my son, the one baseball player in the family, was a phenomenal defensive player, didn't have much of a bat, so he didn't get that from me either.
Yeah, and
he could pick it. He could pick it with the best of them. He was a middle infielder. He could play either short or second, and he actually made the varsity as a high school freshman because of how good his glove was.
Wow!
But they wouldn't hit. They'd DH for him. They wouldn't let him hit. So
there was another Jim Ifland hanging around that lineup somewhere.
I don't know. I keep looking at them and questioning, what was the mailman or the UPS driver doing back then? Because my son should have been able to hit.
yeah. If anything, that's probably true. Hey, Jimmy, it's better to see you when you come up here. We get a chance to visit when you come up, especially during football season. But I wanted to get you on for a number of reasons. I've known you forever, and it sounds like you guys are having a good time as well. And I do appreciate your time on this week. It's always good to catch up and get your opinion on a lot of stuff.
Tom, I appreciate it too. I'm honored that you continue to bring me back. I enjoy our conversations. I wish we lived closer together because I'd love to spend more time with you. But I will definitely be in touch anytime we head north and get into town. So. Thank you for having me.
Well,
I always enjoy it.
Well, as usual, you bring a lot to the program, and as I said, if there's guys I want to pick to be there when they actually get that wrecking ball out, you would be one of them. You'd be on my lineup card to kind of bring it full circle. You would be on that lineup card for me, and hopefully
save me a seat, and I will be there.
All right, buddy. I appreciate your time as always, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you very much.
All right, Tom. You take care, buddy.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
A good guy, Jim Ifland, and one of the better players we've ever had come through here. And we have the same feeling about old Reynolds Stadium and Bedlam and all those good things. And I hope you guys enjoyed what he had to bring to the table. He always brings a lot when we have him on. Where are they now? Appreciate Levi sitting in here with us, looking at us like, what are you talking about? I mean, was there life without a computer? And was there life without the internet? Yeah, there was. There was, Levi. You're going to have to get used to that. And on that note, we'll let him go back to his work. And you guys have a good night. We'll see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow on Dugout Thursday.